Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Sam 64 and welcome to the RoboCast. I'm not alongside Anders9132, he's a bit busy today, but I've been joined by Jimjamatic. Hello, James.
Hello, nice to be here. I mean, I can't replace Anderson. I'm here for this one time, but hopefully he'll be back next time. So, hi,
Hello.
everyone.
Hi. And we're joined by two guests today, not one but two. Guest number one, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Michael from Team Eruption.
And guest number two.
It's Gary here from PP3D Robotics.
Yeah. Obviously, you two fought last series.
Yeah.
Was there something in your mind, like, you wanted to fight each other again? Like, was that something that you wanted to have happen, or was it a case of you just fight anyone?
Well, at the end of the day, you're going to get drawn against who you get, and you've got to fight them, and we'll always go in. Fighting PP3D again, after last time, I probably wouldn't have chosen to, because we got pretty badly beaten up. But, we went for it again, and it worked out in our favour this time. But yeah, it's not every robot I'd choose to fight, because it's quite nasty.
I mean, as we saw from the episode, Gary had issues. We'll get to those as we progress through the episode. But I mean, you had some issues happen.
Oh yeah. The funny thing is that we weren't even meant to be in this episode.
Oh really? You moved around?
Basically, the morning of filming for it, we were in a later one where there were more spinny things, and one of the crew came up to me and said, "Hey, how would you be ready in like an hour's time? Say." I'm like, "Why?" We're looking to bump you up to an episode. I'm like, right, well, who's in the next one? Who's in the one you'd like to bump me to? And there was no spinny thing, so it's like, well, that's an easy choice, isn't it?
Put a spinny thing where there's no spinny things. It makes sense. But anyway, obviously,
yeah.
We'll move on to the actual episode itself. And first battle, we'll start with Eruption. Why not? Seeing as though you're here, Michael, it would be a bit rude not to. I mean, you look at this melee. You got Bay-moth in there, who, as far as I'm aware, you've not really had much problem with on the live circuit before, and Hobgoblin, who potentially could have been quite nasty. Did you look at anyone in that heat and in that four and think, "Joe, they're going to give us a lot of trouble," or was it a case of we expect to go through here?
We were quite worried about the melee, because you've got to think, you've got this hour-long episode, and 4 teams fall in the first 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the melees, you can say, okay, that's maybe a more unconventional design, that you could class them as maybe something that's more likely to get torn apart. When we looked at the robots in ours, there were 4 quite solid designs. And we were quite lucky in a way that Hobgoblin had some teething problems. But if they got that working, it would have been 4 pretty good robots in there. So we were quite worried. And Hobgoblin obviously has got the really nasty spinner on it. So, and we've not got a great track record with spinners. When we get taken out, it's normally for a spinner. So, as Gary did.
I'm looking at you, Gary, for this one.
We saw Hobgoblin and thought, yeah, that's got to go. So we turned that over. And then Cobra has been running on the live scene for a long time, called Brutus.
Yes.
Without Claw. It was just a Rambot then. But it's a really difficult robot to deal with.
I'll be honest, in this melee, I honestly thought that Cobra were very unlucky, and I honestly felt, because myself and James were in the audience at this stage, I honestly felt that Cobra should have gone through with yourselves if I was a judge, but that obviously I'm not. There's 3 very wise people.
I think it was a really tough decision, because we were in the booth for quite a long time.
Yes.
And it was quite nerve-wracking, because you looked at the fight and we thought, okay, we should have gone through here, and we were quite confident, but it was between Bay-moth and Cobra mainly. And I think Kane and Anne and their team were getting quite nervous. It was a really close call, I think. Cobra did a great job, Bay-moth did a great job, and it was a really good fight, so it was quite hard to see which way it'd go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we were there, and I have to say, it was very entertaining watching Cobra go pretty much into orbit multiple times in this entire heat.
Yeah.
But I mean, it did help that when we were there, that we were right next to the heater. Not bragging. Not bragging or anything.
There was the one heater in the whole arena. We were sat right in front of it. It was amazing.
my head was right in front of it, and my entire time my head was just warm. It was comfortable to watch the heat. Let's say that.
Yeah. Gary, I mean, obviously you ended up fighting both Bay-moth and Eruption. Would you have liked to face Cobra?
It would have been interesting, actually. Those big wheels that they had. I don't think we would have had issues slotting under them, but pneumatic wheels they're actually very good at taking a dead knock from a spinner. They're not bad. So I don't doubt it would have been a challenging fight.
Yeah, I mean, again, as Michael said, I think this heat was more than any other. Was like there was 8 robots that could have done quite well, and I think it was testament that I felt it was quite an even heat. To be honest with you, it was really quite interesting.
I mean, considering the fact this is the first time the judges had to deliberate on the opening match, was actually says it all, really.
Yeah.
It was that close. I was actually convinced that Cobra got through. So I was watching that. I thought myself, Bay-moth not done much. I was like, okay, but at the end of the day, I guess it comes down to Cobra being on its back half the time.
Yeah,
it was quite. It's funny you'd like asking Gary what he would have thought about Cobra, because even though Gary wasn't in this fight, PP3D was a conscious sort of worry going into the melee. Like, who do we want to go through? Because obviously the big spinners are a major threat.
Yeah.
And we're thinking, right, for our sake, we need to try and get that to go out. So we're thinking, do we want Bay-moth to go through? Or do we want to go through? And we're thinking, we reckon Bay-moth's probably a better robot to fight a spinner and take that out for us. So that's why you
wanted
gunning for Cobra.
You wanted
going for Cobra the whole time.
You wanted Bay-moth to go through so they could beat PP3D for you, so then they'd be a bit weaker for later on.
Pretty much, and that's
horrible.
Last time in the melee, you saw us go for Sabertooth and let Storm 2 through. And the reason for that is we thought Storm 2's the spinner killer. We've got a big nasty spinner. We want the spinner killer to go through. And obviously that didn't work out for us last time, because then Storm beat us. But same tactics this time, and it worked out. So you've got to start thinking fights ahead.
That's actually really interesting. I didn't think that one through. That's actually that's devious. Michael, how could you? Right.
Yeah, I just attack whoever's in front of me.
We'll get to that later. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later. You can be sure of that. I mean, look, I think the first melee was really fun to watch. I mean, Hobgoblin, as we mentioned already, had difficulties. Did you guys rate Hobgoblin at all as like a potential threat, or was it a case of it could be a problem, but let's just try and get rid of it?
It's a nice robot. I mean, you look at it, and it's its first ever fight. You've got to remember that.
Yes, yeah, cool.
Almost every robot will have some sort of issue in its first fight. It took us months to get Eruption working well, and you look at that robot, and it is very, very nicely made. Yeah. And he had some issues with his drive. I think it was his speed controllers. There was some issue there, but when he gets his bugs sorted out with it, you're not going to want to be in with that, because that's quite a nasty machine.
It's a lovely looking machine as well.
Yeah, I mean, the colour scheme for one. I mean, I just love the fact that you don't see many purple machines, you don't see many green machines. It was really just colourful to look around, and it's very tight. It's just nice to look at.
I mean, the purple and green colour is a very nice combination, and obviously since Anson isn't here, this was actually one of his picks to win the series.
Yeah.
And hindsight is not good. When I was talking to Anson saying, "Oh, what do you think of the robots?" I says, "I like Hobgoblin, it's great." And I'm just out there going, "I can't say anything. I saw what happened."
We knew what happened.
It was so unfortunate. I mean, actually, it was kind of unfortunate right at the beginning of the battle, because you see like everyone gets to starting bits, and obviously Hobgoblin's having problems, so they couldn't even turn into the starting bit. They kept going in a weird angle constantly, so the killer had to like push them in.
Yeah.
The starting bit. And as soon as I saw it, I was just like to Sam saying, "Oh, that's Hobgoblin."
That's had it. Yeah.
It's such a shame, but again, it's a first fight, but it's got a lot of potential for improving in the next series. So if we get to see it again, I'd love to see another egg beater. Have another go, and that's see if it can actually see what it can properly do this time. That'd be nice to see.
Absolutely. Gary, you're going to say something, I think.
No.
Oh, no.
I'm good.
Oh, okay. In that case, we'll wrap up the first melee with Bay-moth, I think, and the scoops. I'm sure we'll get to that again later on, but I did like the idea of the interchangeable scoops. I mean, obviously, last year we saw what Carbide did to Bay-moth. It just basically ripped its face off, didn't it? But obviously, the idea behind it was so solid, and I honestly, the ingenuity was really clever. The grabber maybe less so. We'll get to that a bit later. But the you know, they've clearly progressed, and they thought, you know, right, what do we need to do to win? And it was spinners that caused them the most problems last year, and they've worked around that. I think that's a really cool idea.
I mean, there's a lot of innovation. Oh, sorry, you go.
The logic behind their scoops is quite interesting because obviously their main scoop, the one that they used in the Melian against us, is like 8mm thick grade 5 titanium. And that's pretty expensive. Yeah. So they're thinking, we can only afford one of these. And the ones that they had 2 of the type they used against PP3D.
Oh, they're 2
and
of
they're
those?
like 12mm aluminium, which, you know, it's still quite expensive if you get a decent grade, but it's a lot cheaper. So they've got one really good scoop that they've obviously invested quite a bit in. And then they've got some sort of, they were meant to be sacrificial because it's aluminium. They knew it was going to take damage, but it's more something they can put in as a sacrifice against a spinner. So I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah,
well, I mean, it worked well, and then obviously again Gary had his issues, which we'll get to when we get to it. But I mean, I think it would. Do you think you would have been able to get through it had you been working, Gary, or was it a case of maybe not?
The aluminium scoop, yeah, I don't doubt that if we had a few more good blows to it, you know, it would have got torn up. It certainly, you know, withstood the couple of blows we gave it, you know, perfectly nicely. So, you know, all credit to them for, you know, trying something different.
Yeah, absolutely. That pretty much wraps up the first melee. I mean, obviously, Cobra was very unlucky. I felt, you know, as we said already, but that's the way the judges go sometimes. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to discuss about judges' decisions later on because there's been a massive amount of fallout about this episode's judges' decisions, as I'm sure everyone who's listened to this has already seen.
I didn't see that.
Have you not? It's amazing. It's this, you know, really minor thing, you know.
Yeah, so it wasn't a big deal on the Facebook. No, nobody talked about it, but
no, it's nothing at all. Anyway, we'll move on to Melee 2. And Gary, you bullied Draven. That wasn't very nice.
Draven.
You peeled it like a tin can.
I wouldn't be surprised if all the electronics just fell out.
You melted the underneath of it.
It just fit perfectly. You know, with their ground clearance on the sides, it just slotted under there wonderfully. And yeah, and the funny thing is, you can't really see it from the TV edit. I was actually a bit lucky in that one of our fans was in the audience. They recorded it on their phone and they sent it to me.
Right.
And they were in the corner with that, and I feel a bit bad watching it back because we kind of go in and take out 3 wheels on one side.
Yeah.
Reverse. They turn around and we just go in and take out the other 3.
You know, it's down and fighting. Let's just give it another kick in. Why not? It's not going anywhere.
It's the fact you also broke the jaw on it as well. Like it was just kind of hanging open. Like the entire. As soon as I saw that live, I just like this is just like it's just great. And then obviously I'm surprised like half the electronics didn't just fall out of the bottom. Like he just neatly cut the bottom open and it just kind of just died by shunt. It was just. Draven never catches a break. Yeah. Draven never catches a break against spinners. He never does.
No, definitely not.
I mean, thankfully we didn't. I don't think we caught anything important or valuable. It was all kind of wheels and a bit of titanium and whatnot. So I gave some pretty sparks. And I've seen some pictures today just with you know, the underside as it was, and it's always a problem with the spinners that you feel like such a. I'll not swear, but you know, such a so-and-so. With
you can do if you want to. You're welcome to.
No. This is the internet. We don't swear on the internet. You know, you always feel like such a sod when you know your aim is to trash another machine.
Yeah, of course.
It's nice when you immobilize it, but you don't knacker their £1,000 electronics or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it was a fun melee.
It was. I mean, and then you know, poor push to X. It didn't really get going, did it?
Actually, it did get going right off the bat, right into the wall. That was just, it went so fast. It went
that burst of speed.
I was actually worried when we were watching that it broke down instantly, like an Oates thing. It just kind of rammed into the wall and knocked something out. And I was kind of like, no, not this quickly. But look, it lasted longer.
Either of you. I mean, had push to exit not died when Gary whacked it, do you reckon that it could have probably challenged you for the heat, Michael? Do you reckon that would have been a tough one to fight?
It's a worry because I mean, you saw, even though it wasn't going for very long, it's quick. Like,
Yeah.
it's really quite quick and something that you can't catch. I mean, just with the flipper, we've got the problem of sort of timing flips and stuff like that. And something that's that fast can be a bit of a worry. And obviously, Shane knows what he's doing with it. He's built Envy before. He's got that to the UK Champs final, I think, before. And, if he got it working properly, then, yeah, it would have been a big worry. Again, it's just teething problems. It's a brand new robot. Even with somebody who's done it before, got a load of experience, a new robot, there's always going to be something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's, again, just a bit unlucky. But, yeah, potentially, yeah.
Gary?
I think from memory, speaking to the guys, I think they had a few traction issues in the main arena. It was perfectly fine in the test arena, but once they went into the main arena, it's a different surface. I think they had a few issues with traction, so they weren't as controlled as they wanted to be.
Which is a shame. Again, I think all things being equal, I think I said at the time, PP3D and Push to Exit were the ones I thought would probably have gone through there, but obviously they were scuppered by the indestructible wedge of Cherub.
All hail Cherub.
All hail Cherub and its indestructible wedge at the front. Which, again, I rated Cherub really highly in this episode. I thought that the judges' decisions, again, we'll get to them, while a bit, hey, you know what, it could go either way. I think watching it back, I can see why Cherub got them. It's, and I think they, throughout, I mean, obviously there was the fight with Michael, which didn't last very long, but either fight with Michael didn't last very long.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You were brutal, let's face it. But
it's what you got to do.
It is what you got to do. It is what you got to do. It's how to win. And I think that's the point. I think, that they were fantastic, weren't they? The team were wonderful to keep that thing going and make it to a heat final, which I don't think many people really expected.
Well, what says a lot about Cherub is they've got, obviously, some people don't like it. It's not the most destructive robot. It's not got a massive flipper. It's not got a massive axe. And so it's got a bit of stick. But what says a lot about Cherub is all the roboteers love it. There's not a single roboteer you can find that has got a bad word to say about that robot or that team.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks volumes, really.
Yeah. Gary, anything to add about Cherub?
Not really, no. It is what it is. It did a good job of staying away from us. And, as I said earlier, in a melee situation, being a spinner, your first thing is, get the disc up to speed. And thankfully, everyone gave us a bit of breathing room to do that initially. And then after that, you're pretty much just a case of, all right, well...
who do I fancy? Who do I fancy? Bit of Draven on the side. Obviously, finally, coming to you, Gary, with PP3D. I mean, obviously a massive upgrade from last year in terms of power. Maybe too much?
Well, yeah, maybe a little bit. But then again, you just got to improve the shock mounting. Either drop the power or you increase, how you handle the power. And let's face it, if I submitted an application and it said I've made it less powerful, well, it doesn't exactly, give the guys organising the show a glimmer of hope that we're serious about it. So,
I mean, in fairness, you have to look at, the way you fought in the last series and think, okay, there was times where it was unreliable because it shook itself to pieces, and then you thought, do you know what, I'm gonna make it even more powerful. I'm thinking, it's gonna be fine. But obviously, there was a lot of upgrades that went into it. The whole ridged effect on the back looked awesome. By the way, I just have to say that.
I love the design of that.
Yeah, it just looks so great.
It looks like some kind of creature, like the way you open it up, and it's just kind of like all the insides are there. I mean, one thing I loved about the power of the disc is that it almost felt like you were kind of being like a mad scientist about it. Kind of like, should we probably pull it, less power so we can survive. More power, just like pulling the switch. More power, just like I don't care if the whole arena falls down. More power. Just
we'll get to that.
That's it.
It was so great.
I did actually consider after that opening melee dropping from 12 cell LiPo to 8 cell, which would have dropped the power, dropped the RPM, all the rest of it. But then I thought, what the hell with it?
Let's see what it can do. Obviously, so in the first match, I'll go through Eruption and Bay-moth. In this match was Cherub and PP3D. Eruption versus Bay-moth. Michael, was this a tactic? Was it? Did you intend to pin them in the corner so they couldn't see?
No.
No.
I mean, there is a major problem with the arena. You can't see the opposite corner.
Yeah. And
it's not conscious when you're in the middle of a fight. You've got more important things to worry about. But I just the fight didn't actually start that well for us because we knew we got Bay-moth. Like, it was crucial for us. We had to get underneath it.
Yeah.
That was what it was about. So we put our best flipper arm on, and we got it razor sharp. Like, if you just touched your finger against it, it would have cut your finger open. It was that sharp.
Really?
Yeah. And we put it in, and we drove straight at them, and we just hit the floor seam in the middle of the arena and bounced off. Which I think ruined our front end a little bit in the first 5 seconds, so that might have acted against us. And then Bay-moth flipped us 2 or 3 times, and it wasn't actually going that well. So we started to panic a bit. But I got him in the corner, and all I could see was I sort of pushed him in there, and it started sort of flailing about. He was flipping, trying to get off the wall, and I was thinking, oh, okay, I'm just going to leave him there. Let's see what he does. Let him waste a bit of gas. Yeah. And it wasn't really a conscious thing to think, actually, maybe he can't see. But he was struggling, so I was not going to move him out of there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you've got something to your advantage, why on earth would you give it back? You know, it makes no sense. You know, obviously, one of your many out of the arenas in this heat. It was very stylishly done. It was a full backflip. It was great. You know. You know, did you fear Bay-moth go into it? Was it a case of again you thought probably got the upper hand here again?
No, absolutely. Bay-moth is a fantastic machine, and obviously we've fought each other a lot in the past, and people have commented saying it normally goes our way, which maybe is true, but I think in a lot of fights with Bay-moth in the past, the luck's been on our side. That is a robot that is very, very capable of taking us out. They have beaten us before. Like, you can't ever underestimate it, especially a machine of that pedigree. And you go in there, and especially after it went last year with Storm 2 and PP3D. We lost our first 2 head-to-heads last time, so you don't underestimate anything. And we spent ages before that fight getting the front end perfect, checking over every detail on the robot to make sure it was right, and it paid off. But you can't.
It worked,
yeah, but like a robot like that, there's no way you can underestimate it.
Of course not. I think there's really much more to add to that fight, is there really?
Not really. I mean, I just kind of like the fact that one of the Bay-moth boys, in a desperation to see their robot, were actually trying to climb up the wall. I'd be like, it'd be quite funny. I don't know if like you're on the opposite side and like they just kind of fell through. And it's like, oh, right.
That'd be a problem, wouldn't it?
That'd be quite a problem.
It'd be a big problem. But I think we should move on.
Yeah, that was quite a drop on the other side of that. It would have been a problem.
Yeah. I think we should move on to getting everyone up to speed.
Come on.
Yeah, you had to say it, Gary. I'm so glad you said it again, Gary. It honestly made my night. It was so good. Oh my god. She's up to speed now, boys. Bang! That's it. It was amazing. Oh my goodness me. I mean, obviously, talk us through that one. I mean, that was spectacular.
Yeah, so I mean, going into this fight, I'd wandered around, had a wee look at Cherub and the pit and all the rest of it, and looked at the way that our disc rotated, and I kind of seen their scoop on it on one side. I might be able to maybe not rip it off, but at least get a nice firm grip on something. So you'll notice that at least one point I was trying to get around the side of it.
Yeah. And
then I mean we had a bit of a tussle in the arena. They actually no, forget it, forget that. There was something even more interesting actually at the start of this match before it started. Not shown on camera, but we fried one of our removable links.
Oh wow.
So when we were arming up, as it turns out, so we've got 2 power solenoids that power the E-Tech weapon motor. And it seems that one of them was stuck on after the first melee, unbeknown to us. And so when I put the removable link in for that one, it was essentially the E-Tech essentially trying to rotate this. Thankfully, we had the locking pin in and we were behind the barrier. They just slide that removable link. So, quick, frantic running about, trying to find bits and pieces. And we ended up just tearing that battery pack out. So the disc was down to a single battery pack, same voltage, just lower capacity. So to be honest, I'm actually kind of glad that it was such a short match.
I was going to say, because if I mean, again, we had your issues, but could it have been potentially more devastating than what it was, or is it just a case?
We would have had 10 spin-ups from static, give or take, with one battery pack. But the batteries, when we did testing with just one, they got uncomfortably warm. So we could have set them up on fire long before that.
Oh, wow. I mean,
it could have been fun.
So I think we need to talk about that hit. I mean,
why not?
I mean, it was something else. I mean, did you think that something like that was possible, like flinging Cherub the way you did, and just? I mean, the arena wall bent. The metal bent. It was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we got lucky in that they had a bit of a tussle with dead metal, and then I thought to myself, well, there's always that. Do you go in and try and keep hitting them, but then I might end up smacking the house robot, and I don't really want to have the house robots pissed off at me. So
which is fair enough.
Stood back, and then look, the disc's getting up to speed. Oh well, she's up to speed now, boys. And then we went. Cherub got free. We went in. We gave him a right good smack, and just watched as the arena panel in front of us just disappeared. It was like, oh.
Oops.
Oh, what's that? Yeah.
Oopsie. Honestly, do you think you deserve to lose that fight?
Well, see, this is an interesting thing, because when we went into that interview afterwards, I mean, I honestly thought that we'd done enough to win it.
Right.
But the judges, they obviously watched it back. They've got their criteria for to score the matches.
Right.
And under those criteria, they obviously came to the conclusion that the Cherub won. And it is what it is. I'm happy to accept their decision. There's absolutely no point in kind of throwing the toys out the pram about it, because we weren't going to reverse that decision. So hey, it is what it is. If anything, it's actually just I think it's great, because it's giving people a wonderful talking point.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, what about you, Mike? I mean, would you think that it was a fight that PP3D won or Cherub won, just out of interest?
It's quite an interesting fight, because I was in the stands watching this in the audience.
Really? Right, yeah.
And I remember watching it thinking, I really hope PP3D isn't that bad. And I watched it, and I saw it hit Cherub and then fly to opposite ends of the arena, and just think, oh, I'm screwed here.
Oh no!
to the last filming, just thinking, oh no, it's going to happen again. But it was a contentious fight, and it was one of those where it was on the edge, and I could see why it'd go either way.
Yeah.
Honestly, this time I think I would have given it to PP3D myself.
Okay.
But I can see why it went to Chelsea. I don't think it's
that.
I don't think it goes. I don't think it's one of those decisions where it deserved quite so much of a controversy. It could have gone either way. Cherub is great. As great as PP3D is, I would have given it to them. But Cherub also did quite a good job of deflecting the hits until that one massive hit. They were doing quite well as well. So I don't think it was one of those where you could say black or white. It was either one robot or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me at least, I've watched it back about 2 or 3 times just to try and see, why they'd give it. Initially, I thought, why on earth is this gone to Cherub? Because it's that hit. But throughout the fight, throughout the start, Cherub is progressing forward all the time, and it's a case of, PP3's, yes, it's doing damage, it's bouncing off it, but it's Cherub doing the pushing and such. I mean, James, what did you think about that one?
Well, I personally did agree with Cherub winning that. I mean, I always look at the criteria they judge it by, and obviously when it comes to damage, I think there's only one winner for that one.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that chunk that came off Cherub is all proof of that front bit. I mean, aggression, I would say personally was just equal. I'd say personally both the robots were very aggressive, but I think just the control, the fact that Cherub was the one that constantly was pointing the front at PP3D and always trying to deflect the blows, so it would kind of either make it self-implode in some ways, or at least try and make it spin off somewhere. It was them constantly trying to drive, and I felt like the driving was very well done by the lad and Cherub. He's only 13, I believe, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think he just well to put the hits, and obviously, I still think it was a very close decision. If either one have won, it'd been fine. But I just think it was just that slight control of Cherub before the massive explosion. Then really, I think just that control was what edged it for me. But then I don't think really people should have been so harsh about it. Because a lot of people on social media were saying like, oh, they only gave it because they were kids.
Yeah.
And Noel Sharkey doesn't do that. Otherwise, Big Brother or Bigger Brother would win every single one of their battles in the past. It's like just because they got kids on doesn't mean they have to judge them based off that. So to suggest that, I mean, is pretty rubbish. To be honest, I mean, I think they deserve the win. But again, I'm not going to say, well, if PP3D won, I'm not going to go, well, this is rubbish. I'm not watching anymore.
Yeah.
It was either way, it was a good fight.
I think interestingly, actually, if this had been judged under BattleBots rules, I think we would have won it.
Yes, because of the whole primary weapon thing.
Yeah. Yeah, because and it just shows the difference in judging criteria between the two. I also think they really missed the trick with the editing of this one, and they should have had one of the judges actually justify their decision.
A bit like how they did last series.
Yeah, exactly. Because as it is, I mean, I've had dozens of messages through yesterday and today saying, "What the hell, you were cheated," all the rest of it. And I think to the kind of the casual viewer, and let's face it, the majority of the 1 million people watching are casual viewers.
Yep.
There's no explanation for them as to why it was that way.
Yeah, exactly. That's I'm glad that I think Noel Sharkey took to Twitter today to explain why they made the decision that they did, but it could have been included in the show. That's kind of the frustrating thing. I mean, obviously Michael wrapped up things pretty quickly everywhere else, so there was definitely space for it. So,
Otherwise, I mean, they could have cut one or two of our replays,
Yeah. Well, I mean, did you really want them to though? Did you want them to leave it in?
Oh, they were beautiful. I'm gonna be cutting a lot of them and just putting them on a nice montage video.
Oh, brilliant! I love it. Anyway, obviously after the first round of head-to-heads, Eruption on 3, Cherub on 2, Bay-moth and PP3D on nothing, and then Michael, you, again with the whole out of the arenas and not very long. Cherub round 1. I mean,
it was quite interesting because obviously Gary had given them, it's fair to say, some damage, but it didn't come across on the show just how severe that was because they stripped that robot apart. The entire thing was twisted. Like the front blade on it had been torn apart. The whole chassis was twisted, and they were really struggling to get going again.
Yep.
And we'd done, in the way it was filmed, we'd filmed our fight with Bay-moth and PP3D Cherub was filmed in the morning, and we were due to fight Cherub in the afternoon, and that would have been that was that day.
Right.
And Cherub was not looking ready to go in at all, and they were working tirelessly. And Craig, who's obviously the dad of the team, he wasn't seen on the show, but he was very much there at filming.
Yep.
He was working relentlessly to try and get this robot going again. And he sort of came up to me at one point and said, "I don't know if we're going to be ready in time." And I just said to them, "No, just we'll push this back as fast as we can. We're ready to go. We're happy to wait. And just do whatever you can to get going again."
So
because,
we
want to go in there and fight. This is showcasing our sport. We want to go in there and put on as best a show we can.
So would it been like a case in...
They still, even we gave them as much time. The producers were really great. They gave them as much time as they could, but they tried their best, and they got it going again. It was driving on one wheel. The lifters were working. They got it back together, but the amount of damage they'd taken, it was going to be a bit one-sided, which was a shame. But when you're in there, they call activate. Whatever the conditions, you go in for the kill.
Yep, and in fairness, he did put them out of their misery pretty quickly. I mean, you didn't mess around. So was it a case of like, obviously it took quite a lot of damage. It was a case of like nearly like Rapid last week, where had they not been ready in time, say push to exit or Draven came back in.
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty determined to go back in.
Right.
I'll give them that. I mean, they worked tirelessly on it, all of them.
Draven had gone home at that point, so I think he would have been pushed to exit.
All right.
Yeah, push to exit was the one being lined up because I know they were being lined up and Shane was repairing Shane was repairing push to exit after Gary had also wrecked that robot.
Gary, God's sake, Gary!
I did a bad thing.
To get it back in at all. I mean, they took a lot of damage, and to get it back in at all, credit to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it might not have been perfect in our fight, but against Bay-moth and for the heat final, it was working well against, so it was worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And it was nice to see Cherub at least try and get going, but it was ultimately a bit futile. Yeah. Anyway, Gary, more bashing later, more repairs later. Bay-moth.
Yeah.
And
that 2 hours. Yeah, that 2 hours between the Cherub fight and the Bay-moth fight, I was amazed we got PP3D back together and running again.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, the reason that we were, on the disc at the end of the Cherub fight was that one of the gearboxes of the drive motors, the mounting points had all just shattered. So it wasn't putting any weight on it. So we had to rip that out. We had to replace the removable link. We had to redo various other bits and pieces. And what was wonderful as well was that the welder in the pits had decided to go on his lunch break. So we didn't have access to him. And of course, we're not allowed to use welding equipment because I don't know why. But
reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Both Lawrence and I can use, arc pigs, that the full suite if we need to, but we weren't allowed to. And so we were literally like minutes between us being, basically in and out of the competition.
Oh wow!
So I didn't even have a chance to think about how we were actually going to attack Bay-moth. It just wasn't there. It was when we were then stood in the pod looking down. That was when I thought, right, where the hell do I go for them? Jeez, right.
And then you exploded.
You gave us a very nice firework display, though.
So what happened there? So you'll notice actually we start off well, we get a few knocks in, and then the robot starts going backwards.
Right.
As it happened, what actually happened was that one of the servo leads on our speed controller loosened, so I could only go backwards. I had absolutely no forward control at all, which with me is a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So, at that point, it's like, right, fine, just keep her spinning. What else can you do?
Up to speed now, boys.
That's it, yeah. And then once we smacked off Shunt, took a nice big gash out of his scoop, hit the arena side, and all the rest of it. The 4 bolts that were holding the ETAC in, again, the mounting points just sheared, the motor then rotated, and the terminal was actually shorting. It was essentially welding itself, or trying to weld itself to the chassis. So,
oh wow!
Yeah,
that's.
I will say though, you did give us a very, very nice firework display early for Bonfire Night. It was spectacular. It was. I mean, if you're going to go out in that way, you've got to at least go out in the most amazing.
Yeah, of course.
Flashbang way.
You have to have a bit of style when you go out of these things, and
indeed,
clearly you did this time.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that the impact with Cherub actually contributed to that.
Really?
How vicious that one was. That it maybe cracked 1 or 2 of the mounting points, and then the remainder during those 1 or 2 impacts with Bay-moth and Shunt just said, right, I've had enough, and passed them over away.
And that was that.
Yeah. It was one of those fights where every fight when they call activate, all the teams rush down to the there's a TV in the pits where we watch the fights live. And it was one of those fights where everyone was just in silence, just sort of watching in shock. We'd never seen a robot who come out with so many sparks, and it looked incredible. It was everybody just glued to the screen, just thinking, "I can't believe this is happening."
Sparks that it calls itself.
It's funny. I've got one of the Roboteers recorded that screen. So I've got the Roboteers commentary. I'll upload all these videos, when I get a chance. And I just hear somebody shouting, "Oh God, that's batteries! That's batteries!" It's like, no, that wasn't.
It wasn't batteries this time. You didn't do a chomp a lot.
Great, they'll handle direct shorts and all the rest of it. I'm sold on Optipower brand LiPo batteries. Give me free stuff, Optipower.
There's your plug. Go to them. Right. And so after that, Eruption on 6, PP3D still on 0. Shed a tear.
Yep.
Cherub on 2 and Bay-moth on 3. We'll do you two first. Eruption and PP3D. So at this point, Michael, were you still cacking it over PP3D, Or were you feeling slightly better about things?
Oh no, we were terrified. Genuinely, we were terrified because we'd finished that day of filming. We were on 6 points, and we went back to the hotel, and I had a whole night to sleep on this. And progressively, as we got to the fight, I got more and more scared.
Oh no!
And partially because of what happened in Series 1, which obviously didn't go amazingly well.
No.
And partially because you'd think at this point, PP3D is on 0 points, they're out. But what I think both me and Gary worked out relatively about the same time was not quite.
Yeah, I did it over breakfast the next day.
Gary could still get back in the competition if Eruption could not go back in. And fair play, this is Robot Wars, that's what you're there to do.
Yes.
If we took so much damage in that fight, which was quite a possibility, that Eruption could not go back in, PP3D is back in the competition, and they're through to the heat final. So we knew Gary was going to absolutely go for it. And
I think
it was and fair play to him, because that's exactly what I would have done. And yeah, it was. I think stakes were on.
Gary, go on.
Yeah, I think we also, I forget the points, but I think we also needed Bay-moth to beat Cherub for that to work out. I seem to remember there being at least 2 things had to happen.
Yeah, because you had to.
It was the case. Yeah, as soon as I realized that, it was like, right, game on. There is a glimmer of hope. So, brand new weapon motor in, brand new drive motors. The speed controller was duct taped up and then some. And, we tried our best to get it back together and get it in there. We were gunning for it.
Try and write off Eruption.
Yeah, pretty much. It was
that's the game.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Michael or his dad or anything, but that was our plan for that fight. So.
And
what was interesting, we were on the pit bench next to Gary for all of this. So I got to see PP3D get taken apart. So I saw a brand new E-Tech come out of its box. All these brand new parts come out. It was going back together. It was like a brand new robot. I saw all this unfolding, and I was just thinking, I was just getting more and more stressed.
You just see him like weeping in it. Just see Michael weeping in a corner, just rocking backwards and forwards. Not again.
Actually, there was one bit on the TV that made me laugh so much. It was when they were interviewing Gary about the fight before the fight. I saw Michael just peer around the back. He's talking about going around the back of Eruption. They just had their face of like, oh god, he's talking about beating. He's going to go all out, isn't he? just looking at. I couldn't focus on Gary. I was just looking at Michael in the background the entire time, just like, yeah, this is going to be a fun match. This is going to be all out.
As it turns out, in the end, Gary. Still, it wasn't happening for you, unfortunately, this time, was it?
No. I think it was, from memory, I think with this one, it was basically the solenoid control and the E-Tech. These solenoids, they've done us fine Series 1 when we pumped less voltage and power through them. But then going to Series 2, they just couldn't hack it. So, you'll be glad to know that I've already sourced uprated solenoids, the same ones that Tombstone uses. So,
oh wow!
When I come back and I'm firing on all cylinders with an E-Tech,
Michael, run away! just run! Just run!
Just run! We're 1-1 now.
That's true. Yeah,
Be even more scared next time.
Oh dear. And obviously, again, Michael, another out of the arena. I think, given the fact that the disc wasn't working, probably made it a lot easier than what it would have been otherwise. But I think, again, it's a difficult shape to flip PP3D, like the way it's designed. I think, credit where it was pretty impressive to get it out of the way you did.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say PP3D was quite. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think Gary designed this with flippers in mind, so it's pretty well designed against us. And obviously, in Series 1, we got the side pods just ripped off. So we redesigned all that, and we got the new side pods. They were 8mm Hardox. We put an extra layer on the front to try and reduce catch points. So we properly armoured up, and that seemed to work for us.
It worked.
I have wondered this match if it would have gone the other way if I'd started upside down.
Really? Yeah. So, do you reckon that could have worked out for you?
if I tried to go above those armor pods, it's one of those, oh, what if decisions, but it's one of those ones that does play on my mind. Maybe if I'd gone and started it, upside down, we might have had a better chance to, in the fight. It would have been interesting.
But it means, Gary, you've ended on 0. Oh no.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's not our best performance. But if you're going to go out, then you might as well be involved in a few controversial fights and go out in a blaze of sparks and glory. So
I think we have to say, if you look at all 3 of your fights, they've all got massive talking points. So I think, with that respect, I think PP3D was pretty impressive. It got people talking about it, and it did as far as I'm aware, a pretty decent job of just breaking everything in its path, including itself.
Yes, exactly.
So obviously Gary ends on 0, Michael goes through on 9. Now, again, this is another...
there we go.
Yeah. Cherub versus Bay-moth. Where do I begin with Cherub versus Bay-moth?
I mean, can we start with a positive that was pretty impressive that it went underneath the flipper?
Well, I was about to bring that up. Okay, so for me, if I was, obviously I'm not, if I was in charge of how the series was ran, I would have said Bay-moth's won because Cherub's immobilized. That's me. What did you two think? Would you have been in Bay-moth's position? How irritated would you have been to have lost the fight from there?
It's interesting because obviously like I said, we watch all the Roboteers watch these fights live on the screen, and it was pretty much unanimous amongst all of us that resetting the fight was the right thing to do, because I think, as the Bay-moth team, and I totally understand that, and I've got sympathy for these guys because they were really pretty unlucky. That's irritating for them. But then you look at it from the other side, how irritating would it have been for Cherub to lose due to an arena failure?
Yes.
And I think it was pretty much agreed amongst everyone that it was the right thing to do.
Gary, what about you? Are you that same pool of thought?
It is a tricky one, but then by the same token, if I'd then be quizzing, well, if a spinner broke the back of the flipper and fell down, would the battle then be restarted? The problem is that it's such a grey area. And it's one of those ones that...
it's very, it's never happened before in obviously it happened in the Outweights years and years and years ago.
Oh, yeah.
That was a bit of fun, though, it's...
Yeah, exactly.
Ironically, Bay-moth Anti-B was one that fell in that time.
Yeah.
Actually, one I will say in this particular case, though, I think it was justified to restart because the actual flipper misfired. It fired too early, and then obviously Bay-moth's idea was probably to push them onto the arena flipper and have the Cherub go flying. But obviously it fired too early, and then Cherub just went in. So it wasn't really in a case of, like in a case of a spinner breaking it. It was sort of the spinner that did it, and then it fell in. In this case, Cherub wasn't meant to go under it, per se. So I don't see it in this case. I don't mind restarting, but obviously this is not the big talking point of this battle, of course.
No, another judge's decision, which again I felt could have gone either way. I can see why it went to Cherub, but for the most part they were the ones going forward into Bay-moth and causing problems for them. But it's such a hard one to call.
To be honest, I think the main reason that they won it was simply that they got under the claws. If the claws were under Cherub, then we've gone the other way. I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it was a tough one to it was a tough one to call, and I wouldn't have liked to be a judge for that one. That'd have been awful to decide, but it did mean that Bay-moth unfortunately did go out, and I can completely understand Ant's reaction. I think he did exactly the right thing, remove himself from a situation where he could have said something very silly and just let it go really, and just do the right thing and back away and sort it out later, really.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame the reaction he's got as well. As we've said already, it's been a bit of a a bit of an It's become a bit pretty viral, which is a real shame because I don't think he deserves it.
He doesn't deserve it, and I think personally, him removing himself from that situation is the best thing possible. Because if he had acted, if he'd stayed there and got more and more annoyed at himself or team or whatever, especially in front of the Cherub lot who are mostly a kid team, it would definitely for the amount of experience he's had, it would definitely look very unprofessional for him to start going off on something in the interview or something, or getting really mopey about it. If he leave, that's the best thing, because at least then he doesn't have to, he can remove himself from that situation and not cause any more stopping than it further did, or might have looked like to other people. And I think the backlash is very, very unwarranted, because...
See, there's one thing he said there, and I find it interesting whenever I read it, and other people say the same thing, and it's using the word or the phrase unprofessional.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing that you have to remember is that...
you're not professional.
Well, that's it. This is our hobby. This is what we do for fun. And, the TV crew and cameras, they do try and, tweak your buttons and push you to say things or do things that you wouldn't normally do just to create drama for a TV show. I understand why they do it. But at the same time, we don't get any training in how to deal with the media or anything. No. And and obviously, he dealt with the situation as he felt appropriate at the time. And it is very unfortunate that it's been taken the way it's been taken. But,
yeah, I agree. And it really put a damper on the episode for me, at least, because not him doing it, but the way it's been taken down. Because for the most part, obviously, I'd say Week One's was a little bit better. No offense to either of you two, because it wasn't down to you. It was just I just felt it was a more visual spectacle. I mean, obviously Gary tried, but he tried. But it was very tactical this heat, and I thought it was everyone drove really well. They did what they needed to do to the best of their ability, and I thought it's a shame that it's been soured by the reaction of the public. Really, it's a shame, but. You can't please everyone, can you?
I think it's worth saying that if there's one thing to come out of this, it shows how much we all care. And
yes.
All the teams, that every single person on the show, everyone at the live events, in any competition, people put so much time and energy into doing this. And when you try something and it goes wrong, it's frustrating. And most teams will have had a moment like Ant had, where you get frustrated, and we've all done it. Fortunately for most people, it's at a live event where you need something that's gone horribly wrong that you've spent months and months preparing for, and you need your 5 minutes to cool down.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate for him that it was on national TV. He's the nicest guy. We've known him for a long time. He doesn't. It's been horrible what's happened, but it's important to know that there's nothing. You can't judge him for it at all, because it's totally normal. I think he's a perfectly respectable person. We were talking to him after this quite a bit, and they're just frustrated at what happened, that they got it wrong. It didn't go their way, and that's totally normal.
Yeah, that's how life falls sometimes. You make a decision and it goes against you. Anyway, go on, James. Sorry.
I'll just say quickly. The one thing. I agree with everything, but the one thing that slightly annoyed me about some of the in the backlash is the fact some people took the angle that he was annoyed because he'd lost to children.
Yeah.
So that really annoyed me, because it wasn't. He was more frustrated that something he tried new didn't work, and he wanted to use in a critical battle. He was more preference using the standard scoop, obviously, but it's the fact that people just completely misinterpret anything. They'll just it's just really annoying, really, because he's one of the most experienced roboteers out there, and it's just for this to be considered one of the defining things recently. It's just a shame, really.
It's a shame.
It's in some ways it's totally irrelevant, because you say you're fighting, he's fighting against kids. That's got nothing to do with it at all.
Yeah,
he's fighting an extremely experienced team. He's fighting a fantastic robot that's battle hardened and has been tested and tested and tested. He's fighting a driver. He's 13 years old. He's been doing this for years. He's driven Gabriel. He's driven Saint. He's driven Cherub. He's driven loads of featherweights. He is a fantastic driver. He's better than probably a lot of adults that do this. It's irrelevant. He's fighting a fantastic other team.
Yep.
And it's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I think we should just move on. Really, ultimately, it's a shame it ended up how it did, but ultimately, it did mean that Cherub picking up another judge's decision win, moving on to 4 points and progressing to the heat final to fight you again, Michael. And again, you know, you've broken a Robot Wars record. That's I didn't think Gravity versus Dan Tomkin would ever get beaten, but it has.
Yeah.
I mean yeah, there's nothing really to say.
Because you think we looked at the arena, like obviously going into Series 1, we it's I don't know if this is like known, but the teams didn't have a clue what the arena was going to be like. Like we obviously we were talking to James and Grant a bit, who were obviously behind all this before the show started, and they would not give anything away. We went in Series 1 filming until the pilot episode, having no idea what the arena was like. So at that point, which is about a year ago now, we thought, oh no, there's only 4 tiny areas you can flip out. And at that point, it looked like, can we even get something out of the arena? Like, we didn't know. So to do it in like such a short time wasn't really anything we considered at that point. It was just, we would have been happy if we'd done it at all, really.
Yeah, and you've equalled the most in a row as well, which is kind of ridiculous as well.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Gary, I want some of Gary's in-depth analysis for this battle. To be honest with you, I think that would be quite something. So take it away, Gary. Unfortunately, Gary, your internet's completely cut out. That's such a shame.
Sorry?
Yeah. Your internet's completely cut out then. Oh dear.
Oh, right, okay.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I think it's. Yeah, we can. No, it's not having it. Anyway, while Gary's suffering with various issues, I think it's time to wrap things up. I mean, how do you rate this episode? James, you go first. I've barely spoken to you first. Go on, mate.
It's fine. It's fine. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode because it was very similar to me, like Heat 5 of the last series, where there's so much stuff that's happened. Like you got like obviously nothing. Chomplot is probably just as spectacular as PP3D going up in sparks. It's just that kind of thing where like so you got some controversy, you got things that people might remember for, arguably for the worst, but there's a sort of some memorable judge decisions, some great battles, even a fantastic set of first round battles, particularly with Cobra, and the fact we got our first judge decision, that was amazing. And I think a lot of people seem to have reacted negative to this episode, which is a shame because I quite enjoyed it. I mean, I'll say I still enjoyed the last episode quite a lot as well, but this one just has like a lot more going on in it, and I quite enjoyed seeing Eruption finally manage to live up to its full potential, which was great. I mean, I have to say here now, I was going to say this as a little message originally, but obviously I was brought in the last moment because Anson couldn't make it, and I did a little thingy about all different robots, a little video recently before the series, and I didn't rate Eruption too well, and I'm going to have to say straight up now, I apologize for that. This robot is amazing. I mean, it was just, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know why I said that, to be honest. I mean, I don't mind Eruption, but it's just, I think I just kind of, I guess I was just tired that day. I don't know.
Hadn't had your coffee.
I haven't had my coffee yet, no. But I mean, I completely take back anything I said. I mean, this thing's is a grand finalist now, and also Cherub. Technically now, the Saint team have now 2 wild cards.
Two finals.
And obviously, because Sabretooth is
defunct,
extinct now, so to say.
Yeah.
Cherub is so far the most likely, which is, it'd be nice to see him come back. I mean, obviously we need to see the other three first. I mean, I don't know who that could be. So, but I mean, I really enjoyed this episode, and it was just great to see Eruption, PB3D, and nice to see Bay-moth and see the kids and Cherub. So. Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode personally. I quite liked it.
I'm guessing, Michael, you really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I did. It's very, Yeah, we did series 1, which was great. We've been waiting. What people don't know, a lot of people obviously just watch the TV show, and thanks for supporting it. But we've been if for the people who follow the live events, we've not just come around the last few years. We've been doing this since 2004. Yeah. I was 6 when I started driving robots, so for us, this has kind of been a long time coming. We went to series 1, which was great, and we loved it, but after all those years, it was a bit of an anticlimax, and we were pretty gutted. We came back this year, and we went for it. We got that Eruption coming into the series was the best it has ever been, and we properly went for it, and we couldn't be happier, really.
At the risk of tempting Gary's internet further, Gary, are you there?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
you're live.
Yeah.
How do you rate this episode? How do you rate this episode? Go on.
Sorry.
How do you rate this episode?
I loved it. I had a great time. I mean, the thing is that there's a bit of controversy here or there, whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, Robot Wars is an entertainment show, and as much as anyone has said, "Oh, Cherub should have lost that," or "So and so should have won that," or whatever, I've always asked, "Well, were you entertained?" And it's always been a resounding yes. And I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. I find it very entertaining. The company I had when I was watching it all found it entertaining. So yeah, I think it was a good episode.
I think it was as well. As I said, it wasn't maybe as shocking as it was last, the first heat, but I thought it was absolutely, it was great to watch. I had a lot of fun watching it. It was great. But with that, Michael, congratulations, you're in the grand final.
Thank you.
And I'll see you next week for Heat 3. Thank you very much to Gary and Michael for taking your time to come and chat a load of rubbish for an hour, really. But it's been really good to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Was rubbish there?
I can't. I could never say that. Never say that.
Entertaining rubbish.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you next week for Heat 3. Goodbye.
Bye.